So I think we have stood around long enough, not doing anything, expecting our representatives to do something for us because they're our representatives. It's what they're supposed to do. Obviously, that's not going to happen unless, of course, you live in Texas. They're taking the fight to them in Texas. So where are we at exactly in the fight? Now, I might have missed some things because my board's only so big, so I'll cover as much as I can. Alright, for DIY, that would be your 80%ers, ghost guns, stuff like that. Well, Delaware, they got sued for their state law against ghost guns, which is awesome because it was ruled favorably by the federal court judge. Now, obviously, these cases are all in their infancy. They still have to go up to circuit court and then ultimately the Supreme Court, so they don't really mean that much right now, but we're just trying to establish where the battle line is and where we're going. Also, the FPC case in Texas against 80%ers, that was ruled favorably. Those cases will be moving up. In FPC in Texas, that they got an injunction, which is, from what I understand, insanely hard to get. So that's looking pretty good right there. Now we got prohibited persons. The first one that also happened in Texas, that's 922N that the federal judge ruled against. That is, if you're under indictment that you can't possess or purchase a firearm. That was ruled favorably by a federal judge. Obviously, like I said, it's still in its infancy. It needs to go up. The next one is the weed case in Florida. Now, I believe that one's going against 922G. I'm not 100% certain on that. But 922G is basically the prohibited people, the people that can't buy. Then from what I understand, 922N is the fact that you can't sell, like the straw purchase thing. Also, we have a case that's looking like it's going to come out in Missouri and Hawaii against 922G, which is really cool. They're going to let me know. I kicked those over to the GOA, so we'll have to see if they net any fruit. If they come back to me and say that the GOA didn't net them any fruit, then I'll kick them over to the FPC and see if they can get some help there. But basically, once those cases get established, and they're like, okay, we got a lawyer, we're about to file our lawsuit, then I'll obviously do a video on it, and we'll get like 1,000 or so plaintiffs added on that case. That is against, if you're a felon, that you're now a prohibited person, which is ridiculous. That's not what the Second Amendment says. It doesn't say shall not infringe unless you've been convicted. Basically, it boils down to if you're safe enough to be let out of jail, you're safe enough to enjoy all your rights. If you can't be trusted with a firearm, why in the shit were you let out of jail in the first place? So anyway, we need more plaintiffs. This way every district is hit with that particular one. So if you live in one of those districts, well, obviously you do because you're watching this video and almost 100% of my audience is out of America, but anyway, you need to file a lawsuit in your district. Once it gets established, you have a lawyer, you're ready to move forward with it, let me know, I'll promote it on my channel, and we'll get you a whole bunch of plaintiffs in your district. So right now, waiting to see what's going to happen, if they're able to pull it off in Missouri or Hawaii. But basically, if you're a felon and you're well off, like you have some cash, and you're looking to make America a better place for your children, this is how you do it. You file a lawsuit. After the Bruen decision, all these laws that have been put up, and I believe there's 2,000 of them, are unconstitutional. And now we finally have an avenue where we can fight it. Alright, CCW, we're looking for constitutional carry. Basically, why is there a law against carrying a firearm? Now, in the Bruen decision, they said that there is an exception for sensitive places. It's a mess. Anyway, the GOA is back at it, going after New York for their CCW laws. They got quite a few plaintiffs on that one now, so that's going to move forward. And hopefully that'll clarify exactly what a sensitive place is. Because in New York, they're like, oh, so we get an exception for sensitive places. They basically made every single place in New York except for your own home a sensitive place. Like the sidewalk, sensitive place. Parking lot, sensitive place. Public meeting place, sensitive place. It's pretty bad. So hopefully that one will go up to the Supreme Court, or maybe they'll just get a federal judge ruling that will shut it down. The point is that's to clarify, or in my eyes, what that case is to clarify exactly what a sensitive place is. Then you got Chevron deference. That's where your rare breed triggers fall under, your bump stock cases. Those are actually up at the Supreme Court level. So we're going to have to see what happens with that. Hopefully that the Supreme Court will take them. There's 2 cases. And that'll decide whether or not the ATF can arbitrarily make up a new law in the middle of the night. Typically, how it's supposed to work is you have this item that's in question, and then it would go in front of Congress and they would decide whether or not that falls under the NFA or the GCA, and then they would change the NFA or GCA to include that in there. Well, lately, within the past 10 years or so, the ATF hasn't been doing that. They just arbitrarily decide what is or is not this or that, and they're saying they're just reinterpreting the law. This way they don't have to actually bring something in front of Congress and get a change to the law. Because remember, the bump stocks were brought in front of Congress, and Congress didn't want to touch it. They're like, no, we're not going to make that a machine gun. So the ATF just went off on their own way and made it a machine gun themselves by reinterpreting the definition of a machine gun. Yes, that law has been in place since 1934, but you can't just be like, oh, I'm reinterpreting it now, and now I've decided that the definition of function of a trigger, now all semi-automatics are a machine gun. So that's what the bump stock cases are going to try to fight. Obviously, that's where the rare breed trigger is going to go, and a whole pile of other cases. So where are we going from there? Then we got the NFA tax. You can't tax a right. Specifically, Murdoch versus Pennsylvania, that's where the Supreme Court decided that, hey, if it's a constitutionally protected right, there cannot be a tax on it. Sales tax on firearms is unconstitutional. That's how bad it is. Well, anyways, Texas is challenging that with their Texas-made suppressors. Again, that's in its infancy. We're going to have to see where that goes. Hopefully, we'll net some fruit from there, and the tax will be shut down, because that would ultimately make it so... Because the whole reason you can't buy a new manufactured machine gun is because they won't allow you to pay the tax on it. Which also makes it not a tax, because a tax has to be collectible, and you can't tax a right. So that would make it so new manufactured machine guns could go through. But anyway, Texas is challenging the whole NFA tax, which is BS, so hopefully we're going to see some movement in that. And they're also challenging interstate commerce. Because in Texas, they're saying if this suppressor is made in Texas, it doesn't leave Texas, this silencer does not fall under the NFA, because the government only has authority for state-to-state transactions. If it doesn't cross a state line, the government has no authority over it. So hopefully we'll see some fruit netted in that too, because should they do that, and that makes it all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they win, that would essentially mean if you make a machine gun, and say you live in Illinois, you make it in Illinois, it never leaves Illinois state lines. If Illinois doesn't have a law directly against it, that's not illegal. So we'll have to see where that's going. And then you got the NFA on its face. That's unconstitutional. Obviously, there's Hoover versus USA. That's a criminal case, though. We'll have to see where that goes. But what we need there is some civil lawsuits. If you're well off and you want to make a difference for the future of your children, file a civil lawsuit. What I would really actually like to see is creators spearhead this. Not smaller ones, because they just don't have the resources and that to do it, but creators over, say, 150,000, 200,000, because of the people you meet and the resources you get as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, you're able to spearhead something like that. So what I would like to see is some creators file civil lawsuits against the NFA. And if not creators, if you file a civil lawsuit against the NFA, say you're well off, you're like, okay, I picked an attorney, I'm going to file this, let me know and I'll promote it, and I'll get a whole bunch of other plaintiffs in your particular district to sign on to that. So you're not going, just as you going against the United States, you're going you and 1,000 other plaintiffs. I don't know what the max is for plaintiffs, but we want to hit that max. If it's 1,000, 10,000, whatever, we want that many plaintiffs to back you up and be like, hey, the NFA is unconstitutional. Obviously, a criminal case would make it to the courts faster because somebody's livelihood's on the line, but we still need the civil suits as well. So, we need to get some action going in there. I don't know if anybody wants to go specifically against the GCA, because pretty much if the NFA falls, everything falls after it because everything is built on interpretations of the NFA. Now, the NFA is actually in a really good position to fall. Regardless what case it is, whether you're talking about Heller, McDonald, Bruen, all of them have basically said in an off way that the NFA is unconstitutional, except for the Heller case because he said there's 2 militias and a bunch of other ridiculous stuff about dangerous and unusual weapons, but there's no facts backing up what that particular judge said, so I believe that's vulnerable and open for attack. Yeah, I don't foresee the NFA standing up in the Supreme Court. Am I being overly hopeful? Maybe. Maybe not. Everybody knows it's unconstitutional. They've known this since it dropped in the 30s when a bunch of Democrats brought Jim Crow laws to the general public because, well, black people were being accepted in the general public. So the only way to continue restricting them is make their laws for the entire public. So we'll have to see where that goes. Anyway. Appreciate you guys watching my channel. Remember, you make the difference. You do. You have to file the civil lawsuits. And again, I would like to see you as bigger creators also file your own civil lawsuits. But if you like to help support the channel, I got my Patreon right there. I also have affiliate links in the description down below. Just by clicking on those links. Even if you don't purchase what that particular link is for, just clicking on it and doing the Amazon shopping you were already going to do anyway. And a little kickback for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.